stem to be able to breathe in a high water situation. Shit, we're live. Never mind.
No, keep going. This is good shit. We can.
You can ask again.
No, we'll forget. We guarantee we will totally forget. I'm interested in hearing about hollow stem plants as a wannabe breeder, pollen chucker by is more likely a better term, I say. I've always been, I don't like hollow stem plants just because to me it makes me feel like it's structurally deficient in a way, but there's like got to be some kind of benefits. And so when I hear Fluff bring up something like that, I'm like, hey, yeah, like, is there something to that?
Hollow stem plants. Well, they're very efficient at transporting water. So your areas that get more water, right? They'll do really well in, and they'll be taller. But a lot of them will put out extra root structures. Have you anybody grown corn? You know, they have like prop roots on the bottom. Those are to keep the corn from, falling over. But it's not a perfect system. So if you get like super high speed winds that go through there, obviously, they'll go down. And a lot of times wheat right at the end of the season, right? It's got the big head of grain on top. And all of a sudden a wind goes through right before it's harvested and crash, the whole like field goes down sideways. So yeah, they are a challenge, but they're also, because they don't carry a lot of leaf structure, the wind goes around them more easily. So they can tolerate wind better than super herbaceous plants. Like especially the ones with square stems, like they aren't aerodynamic at all, right? So it's like the trade-off.
Now, do you think a non-hollowed stem plant like cannabis will become more hollow stemmed in a wet environment?
Or do you think that's more of a deficiency, or just just driven by the hormones in the plant or something?
Because for me, from the people I listen to, sounds like it doesn't have enough calcium if it has a hollow stem in cannabis. So we push it a little bit to get that nice thick stem.
Well, so the calcium helps the cell like structure, right? The plant cell structure. So it doesn't have anything to do with it being hollow, though.
Okay.
Right. Well, so saying it would be deficient. So like saying it would be deficient, or it could use more calcium, creating that hollow spot, I believe is what they're saying. So I'm not sure how that one goes along, but yeah, I just I had learned that a lot of like the water dwelling plants, right? They have that hollow stem. So I was just wondering if it was more of like a mutation, not really a mutation, but maybe like just the plant's way of getting along in an environment that's nice and wet where it doesn't really want to be. So I was just curious if that was something. So it's an interesting argument in the cannabis fucking field.
Can I jump in here real quick? I
just
want to say hi to OK Calix. You jumped in here, or don't want to be sitting here donging you off. And so, how you doing, brother? Great to see you.
I'm good, guys. How you doing? I'm just chilling and listening. I'm enjoying it.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us. I want to say hi to everyone in live chat. We didn't do our usual song and video tonight because we actually, as often happens, right at the go time buzzer, we're caught up in the middle of a great discussion, and I wanted to hear this out. This is interesting as heck to me. So, but tonight we're here to talk about outdoor growing. That season is about here. So we got OK Calix here, dude. You post some of the best content on all of Instagram, as far as I'm concerned. Your DIY inputs that you're doing it's awesome, and it's inspiring me. Like after first discovering your page. Fluff turned me on to you about this time last year, I think it was. And then all of a sudden, I'm out in my backyard trying to do JDOMs and, doing KNF and all a bunch of other stuff. It's like gets me back in touch with that. So I love having you around here. We want to hear about what you got going on and stuff like that. But we also got Fluff's sister, Carrie, coming back here now. We've been wanting to get you back because last time you were on, this was also a great night of agricultural and compost discussions. Now, I don't want to mispronounce your titles, but what would you? What is your profession or job title exactly?
So my job title is agricultural biologist, weights and measures inspector. So my main purpose and job is to enforce California's agricultural laws for pesticide use and quarantine enforcement. But I also have the caveat of fair business practices in the so if you're buying gas at the gas meter, we test the pumps and make sure that they're delivering exactly the right amount of gas every time. Or so, and that's a worldwide thing. So it's not just, it just happens that it falls in our realm as well. So I have licenses for all of that. I have 8 licenses that make me able to do the job that I do.
Well, I think I think you just in your brain alone, you're smarter than everyone in the panel and in live chat combined. So if right there, we're very happy to have you joining us for some great stuff. We also got Day Neutral Preserves, a cannabis breeder, and he does a lot of outdoor work. And one of the very first conversations I had with you about cannabis and sending something out your way, and you're kind of you're talking about whatever you want to see fight with humidity and deal with that. So I thought that's another important aspect that we can maybe get into. G-Bay, we've seen you fight with humidity and moisture levels and stuff like that, and having to chop up a bunch of your products. So I'm wondering if we can kind of do some brainstorming and just talk. And Tyler, hopefully he'll be along here anytime now. I'm hoping. I have not been in contact with him today, but I worse things have happened. But this is why we'll just start bringing 8 guests on at once, so that way if 7 of them just miraculously can't make it, hey, we get 1 still. And look at this, we still got 3 great guests. This is going to be a great time. So, Dab Frog.
Dab Frog. So, okay, Calix, man, it's been pretty cool seeing you doing all those different forms of the bokashi that you're setting up, man. Just right, you drying it out in your driveway right now? Just getting it done, man. That is pretty awesome. And I'll be curious to see how those chicken manure inputs work with that. Oh, looks like he's running slow tonight.
Chop it. That's all right.
I'll tell you what, one of these days, we either got to figure out something better than StreamYard that's easier on other people's interwebs.
Well, what I would actually like is if Zoom had a few of the fucking bells and whistles that StreamYard had. Zoom, I don't think we had nearly as many connection issues on. But when it gets down to actual podcast formatting and stuff like that and trying to run a show, StreamYard is easier from where I'm sitting, at least. Looks like maybe we're going to get to go on a tour here. It's okay, Calix. So you're Tyler. This is like DIY to the max here. But as he says, he's got kids, and only limited funds, as we all do. So there's ways to be able to do this for as cheap as humanly possible. Like I said, it's inspiring. And of course, he's gone. So
you know what? That's good. That's a good one. I wouldn't mind hearing some thoughts on, because I love that shit. I've been doing, making up the JLF, or what I like to call just the fuck it buckets for for years as just a little bit of extra, to water into my gardens and things like that. What are your thoughts on some of those practices, Carrie? Like, how do you, the Jadam, the KNF, all that stuff? What are your thoughts on how some of those are? The fermented, just let your plant rot in some water and fucking feed it back.
I don't have any thoughts on it.
With it,
I'm a humus lady, and I mean my backwards training from years ago was make sure it's rot all the way so that you don't F up your plants. But now that they understand like microbacteria and stuff, it's a whole different game out there. And just I don't try it because, like, I've been told, like, you can't have all that stuff in your plant, near your plant roots and stuff, and so it kind of scares me. Plus, I can't grow crap because we have no water out here, so none of that stuff would even stay alive anyway.
Well, that's always, I do love the humus layer, right? I'm firmly I believe in that too. But watching guys like OK Calix and just doing it myself, picking it up, trying to do this crap as cheap as possible myself, and seeing the firsthand results of what happens, I mean, that just speaks for itself, in my opinion. And it's cool to see, some of us broke people doing this shit just to see more of the science get picked up and actually see the results and the actual science of how it's working and all of that. So,
dude, when I see when we think of gardening, like when you start growing cannabis and you go into the store, and a lot of the times the first thing you get doing is the fancy colorful bottles and stuff like that, and the shit's expensive is what I'm getting at. And then sometimes we get into, okay, we're gonna go dry amendments, and you know what, that shit can be very expensive depending on what you're going with it. And then I see a dude like OK Calix who's going and basically raiding the dumpsters of grocery stores and coming home with a box of his truck is full of fucking cantaloupes. And he's adding that to water and stuff like that. And I'm going like, okay, I can do that. And then he's running around using stuff off your property, make IMOs and morgidoms and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, I might be too bashful to go and ask for the rotting fruit and vegetable matters from the grocery stores and stuff like that. I'm shy. That is an issue for me. But to go forage in the bush and look for plants and throw that in a bucket of water and just throw it over in the corner, it's free except for a little bit of your time, and you get to go play in the bush, or which is always a good time, foraging for goodies and stuff like that. And it's like, now we're talking about being able to grow very, very killer dank or good quality fruits and vegetables and stuff like that at a very low budget. And it's like, hey, now you've got my attention, because I'm at that point in time in my life where I love growing dank, but I'd rather spend my money elsewhere. I just had a great weekend of seeing concerts with my family. I would like to go and do that more often. And if I can get rid of the costs of growing cannabis, I can do that, right? And I'll never totally get rid of the cost, but yeah. So let's maximize efficiencies, dude. Like I said, you are some of the best content on all of Instagram right now, and I sincerely mean that.
Appreciate that.
I
appreciate that, man.
Yeah, I think it's super funny because that's how I found you. Like, I saw you doing the same shit my mom was doing. I was like, you were coming back with like 5-gallon buckets of coffee and like shit from like the local grocer, a truckload of shit from the local grocer. And you're like, and we have fertilizer, kapow. And I'm like, damn, I've been watching my mom do this shit for years. I need to watch this man. He is on the fucking level I like. So that, that's how I found you. And that shit was totally normal to me. So, and And compost, it's the best thing in the fucking world. So, and tailing on to growing outdoors, it's really should be almost the start to your gardening season, shouldn't it? Like, get your fucking beds ready with your compost, right? Start spreading that shit out. It should have been made, or you should be making yours for the next year already, right? It's that time of year to start really working on this stuff.
Yeah, I work on mine all fall long, and winter if I can. Always dumping that JLF in it. If it's warm enough, make some JMS, but JLF is always going in those no-till spots for sure. But yeah, outside is about to start. I've got a lot of my genetics popped, and they're about on node probably 6 or 7. They're still in 5-gallon pots right now, but they're going to be beasts. I've been moving all of my inside plants outside in the morning and back inside at night for probably the last 2 weeks just to get that sunlight on them. It makes them look so different, man. They just look beautiful. So growing outside is awesome in Oklahoma, especially if you got some sun. You can get them big. In my no-till spots, all I do is water out of my faucet and JLF. That's the nutrient that I use. I'll spray different things on them just for experimenting on stuff. But yeah, growing outside. See, man, you're talking about all these things that we do. And forgive me, I'm trying to read your name. Is it Carrie? That you are the biologist? Okay. Mm-hmm. Hi, Carrie. I'm okay. Kev is my name. But yeah, I was listening to what you saying. That is the science part behind a lot of the stuff that I do, that I don't know any of the science. I only know the forms and the methods. Because like reading old gardening books for a couple 100 years old, things like that, these forms are already happening. The things that I'm doing, people's already doing. We just bounced over it. We quit doing a lot of these things. And we were told that putting rot by your plants will probably get them blighted out and nasty, and you're going to get fungus and all kinds of stuff on them. But really, the idea is that all of that rot is food for microbiology, for shredders, and all kinds of good things to come in and make a good, healthy, balanced soil so that your roots can live in that and really be healthy and active. So that's what I do. Yeah, I cut up a bunch of fruit constantly and basically composting in my no-till spots. I'll compost in my big barrels that I have, but then when summertime comes around or spring, like right now, there's a lot of excess vegetation, a lot of fruit, a lot of cutting the leaves off of broccoli and cabbage, a lot of excess in trash cans. I take all of that, it just gets thrown all around my plants, even my canvas plants, and I just let it rot down. I'll pour some bacteria mix on it, maybe try to help it out a little bit to rot faster. But all that is just food for microbiology to turn into nutrients for the plants. These methods are old. They're not new. They're just new. They're coming back around as new.
That was always one neat thing that my sister always told me about her compost spot was, you just put it there, right? And the biology for that was started in that area, right? And so it's sitting there. And every time you just put something on that spot knows what to do, right? It gets to work, and shit just broke down fast. She's always real proud about her fucking composting area. And when I finally got mine done, I get it, right? Because, dude, I want to be able to just put that area in places, because it's 3 foot away from my compost pile is some of the most black, beautiful soil in the fucking, I just want to scoop that shit up and smell it, and just, it's wonderful, right? But I need to get that over where I need it, right? Not next to my compost pile. So, I just don't want to deal with the extra weeds, the extra shit, because I'm not going to deal through and de-seed that shit. And so that's always been my problem with composting right in spot. You
make it so nutrient dense in those spots that the weeds do tend to flourish in that. So you do have that challenge.
And yeah, that's really the only downside to that is you've created the little extra work to de-weeding that area. You know what I mean? But it almost seems to help the soil too, because as you're de-weeding that, you're doing a little aeration into that soil, you're getting some. So I don't know.
And that's always a sign that it's ready to grow in for me. I mean, once there are weeds everywhere in, it's like, all right, well, time to grow in.
Yeah, that's good and fucking healthy.
That's the idea. That's, they're coming out with all the information on the rhizophagy cycle, that the more roots you have, the more exudates that are released into the soil, the more attraction of microbiology there is, things like that. So the idea seems to be now that the weeds aren't weeds, or transition plants, if you will, because you're wanting those roots in the ground, because they're exudating, right? They're putting out the sweetness for the microbiology. So that's the latest thoughts and stuff like that. But with my compost, yeah, I have all kinds of things growing out of it, but I just treat it as chop and drop, just cut it or rake it over real hard, stuff like that. So it's kind of preference. You might not like seeds growing out of your compost, that's totally fine. You might not care, and that's fine too. I kind of don't care, my point.
Yeah, and that's it, right? That's exactly what because it is my, like, just you can ask my wife or anybody who looks at even my potted plants, right? I pot like one, and I like my one motherfucking thing there, and I like a nice clean top around it. That's just so yeah, it's kind of one of those OCD type things. But like my compost pile, hell no, I'm proud to see shit grow out of it. Hell no, because that means right, it's happy, it's healthy, it's doing right. Like I said, I just want to move it places.
I have to be careful
that's the joy,
because I have neighbors that don't appreciate.
You're muted.
Yeah.
Say you're muted.
My neighbors don't appreciate like when my compost grows fun stuff. And so I get talked to often when my squash overruns their fence or something. So I wish I lived more wild than I do, but
yeah, we took our backyard and turned it into, well, half of it anyways, into just completely dedicated to growing vegetables and cannabis. And man, I can't wait. We got another month before I'm out there playing around, I guess. But I still have all the stumps in from last year, or I call them antlers. All the plants, I trimmed all the branches off, right, and just left everything in there. So got to go and pull those out and get ready. Like I usually lay like a little bit of rock dust down in the spring. What else do you guys suggest that I can amend with, like top dress with?
Like the amendment, like this year, right before I went to go through, I did like wood ash. So, I was doing some burning and stuff. So went, spread that out. Like literally some coffee is a good nitrogen boost throughout your garden, spread that shit out. I did that. And then I have laid down like alfalfa as like kind of like just the top of it as mulch. And that's been pretty much what I'm doing for mine, just as a starter for the season.
Yeah. I had a heavy layer of clover in there last year as a cover crop underneath the plants, and I just left that there. And then I put a good little dose of the Gaia Green Dry Amendment 444 on it, usually every spring. I haven't done that yet, along with some rock dust and like azomite sometimes, but I don't know.
Now, when I go to plant and shit, right, all the holes, that's when we start spreading the compost out to everything, right? And that's really the main like charging amendment for the beginning of the season is the compost that you're kind of dropping down there, for your transplants and topping on the top of your, soil layer. So
yeah, like the dry amendments, and then I put compost on top of it. The problem with it for me is I don't have any good sources for compost, so I got to go get the bag stuff, and it's like I never really trust it. You know what I mean?
Do you have a corner in your backyard somewhere where you could set up with, like, say, a few pallets? Because I've seen a lot of people, they'll take basically, like, what's the math? Like 4 pallets, 1 on the bottom, 2 on each side, and 1 in the back. And that's your little compost heap that they'll just keep dumping and turning and stuff like that. And you see, that's like, it doesn't take up much space.
We did try that, but unfortunately, for some reason, I think maybe the abandoned school that's directly in front of our house, there is a massive amount of rats.
so we can't.
Like literally, they made a house underneath my shed and it caused kind of an issue. The dogs were getting
We
at them.
finally have them at bay on our property, but our neighbors are still composting, and they can't get rid of them.
I had to give up the compost. Even my brush pile is an issue.
I don't know.
And it's
that's a fucking
good
problem.
We have 3 big dogs, and it doesn't matter.
Rue was catching them like once a week, man. And like I'm like, they just are such mangy looking little rat. Ugh, I fucking hate rats. So I'm like, I don't want my dog catching anything or getting tore up by one of these dirty little things. So yeah, unfortunately, composting for me is.
Yeah, that's a problem too. Right now, you got to watch what dry amendments you use too, because you know, like. Yeah, dude, I've got some dry amendments that the fucking rats and shit love, and I won't throw them anywhere near my outside.
That's what I was saying.
I just dig them in real heavy, just I have to, because then they can't get them. Like they'll come around and dig around maybe.
I was just gonna ask about that. Trying that as a way to keep them from getting all that out. Because oftentimes when we top dress, like say in our indoor grows, you'll scruff it into the dirt, topsoil a little bit, right, to kind of mix it in. They still go in there and just make a big mess of all your shit? Or like rats is another thing that we have mice. I've never seen rats up here though.
With his cannabis, I find that works, but with any sort of vegetables, sunflowers, like anything that they can eat, they just go at it, and they go at it regardless because they can eat it. So they're just yeah.
I need a couple like.
This is why I have the vegetable tent indoors this year, because I want to try and get more than we usually get, and it's usually because the rodents or raccoons,
groundhogs,
rabbits.
Birds.
Yeah, rabbits are bad.
Raccoons,
Everything eats it on us.
We're like,
yeah, that was actually a question I was going to ask. OK Calix was like, you know, when you're out there and you lay down a bunch of like the fruits and stuff out there, do you ever notice a huge boom in like your raccoons and, you know, your rat or mice and shit like that out in that area of the garden?
So yeah, in my compost, I have mice. I got rid of I did a pretty good massacre about a month ago of them all. I don't like killing them, but I like trying to trap them in a little possum cage or little cup deals. But if I gotta kill them, I will. Like I probably had like 8 mice in there that I could kind of know pretty well, because every time you open a lid up, you're like, oh, there's 5 of them right there just hanging out. So they're cute and all. They're not like rats. You know, the rats are disgusting. Rats are like nasty possums. You know, they're like mangy looking, long tails, and mean. Yeah. I can understand that. You don't want to, like, if you compost it, all you're doing is ask them to come on over. Even if you compost it in chicken wire bins and stuff like that, they're still just going to be hanging out, gnawing, I'm sure.
I tried the small roller one, you know, like just a little, like, you know, apartment kind of thing.
Yeah,
like just a little barrel that you can add to, you know, whatever. And it didn't really work, first off. And then second off, yeah, they were like just jumping up in there and shit too.
That's the other thing. Even a proper like running compost that is thermophilically fucking running, they'll climb on top of that shit and eat right off the top of it. They don't give a shit.
Yeah,
You know, they're just fucking nasty bastards. So yeah, if you got a rat problem, I totally see why compost is not going to be a thing. Yeah, unless you got a good gun and you like to have target practice.
Oh, if I was allowed, I would.
Raccoons have little.
Yeah, but
I mean, I would think that if you could get a bucket that seals up, if you were able to do a JLF, I don't know what you do, but if you got JLF, you know, that's gonna act as nutrient for you. It could be totally sealed up anaerobically fermenting, and then like that's what I use is the JLF. It's all nutrient. You know, there's microbiology in there, but it's a lot of nutrient. And then the JMS, the Jadon microbial solution, that's all for microbiology. And I would assume that you could contain that since it's liquid somehow, or they could not get it and, you know, use that stuff that way. Because it's the idea of compost. Compost carries nutrient and biology depending on the style of compost it is. Of course, mine always stays around 120 or so I like, so it's got lots of biology in it. But that would maybe be a little help.
I have some areas in the back, definitely where I could set up a station. And you're definitely not the first person to tell me that it's easy to do. All the boys and girls have been ribbing me, but to get on the train. So I think this summer is the summer of the juice. I think we're gonna go for it maybe, but
Good shit. Just start trying. Just start trying.
Yeah, I just can't wait to see my all white dog come in the house just covered in some rotten vegetable juice. But
Man,
I
just
can't wait
chased
to
off
hear
a
the
dog. I
stories.
just chased off a dog who's trying to eat this pukashi in my driveway.
I got a
Yeah.
really inquisitive Siberian husky, and she'll get in there. I know it. So I'll prepare myself for it.
Yeah.
I do have to say, man, you had balls spreading out the chicken manure fucking bokashi out in the driveway just to hang out there. I was like, ooh, I hope that shit ain't there at fucking sundown because you're gonna have all kinds of critters.
They're gonna come tonight, I promise you. They'll be
Oh,
here
yeah.
tonight. I'll chase them off for a while. I'll let them eat a little bit.
Oh man, I got played with because one year I was growing corn. My neighbor laughed. He's like, "You're feeding the coons, buddy. Like, just good luck with that." And I got away with it. There's some corn.
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh yeah, I got to tell
That's
you."
good.
And then every year since. One morning I'll wake up and it's just like tornado in the corn patch. It's all knocked over.
I was gonna throw some up this year just to fucking give it a go get them and say I gave it a try, and because corn's another one where I'm like, dude, it costs like $1 at the store for like enough to eat, and it costs like way too much time and fucking effort to grow the same amount in my fucking garden, right? So corn's just one I don't understand as a personal gardener for my personal space. If you're small space garden, I'm like, I don't get that shit. So but right, so I'm gonna throw some out there anyway, just so I tried and watch the fucking squirrels and raccoons decimate the fuck out of it, probably.
Yeah.
Now,
But,
would there be like I've asked this before on some of our shows with people of your guys' caliber. Is there like a easy solution for a lot of us growing outdoors? We are, a lot of us are just doing it because it's available to us. Not everyone's an expert, you know what I mean? Not really anyone is. A lot of people doing it don't really know what's up. You know what I mean? They just Miracle Grow or whatever the heck it is they have in the blue crystals, So what would be like the easiest solution? The banana teas I see people doing. Like I haven't really researched much, but what's the best easy, starter pack for this kind of stuff?
There's a few areas. I mean, like you're going to be dealing with pests and insects. You're going to be dealing with humidity and bud rot. You'll be dealing with pests. Like I have to deal with armadillos that will dig, a foot in the ground, and the plant will fall over if they get too close to it. It's happened before. The sun, you know what I'm saying? If you get, I don't know, what state are you in?
I'm up in Canada.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
basically Michigan. Picture like the middle of the mitten. That's basically where I am. I'm
so
right across from Michigan, across the Great
So
Lakes.
like I see. So you've got maybe like 3 months to grow, or what do you have?
Yeah, well, end of May we can plant basically. June, first week of June, and I grow up until October, end of October.
Oh, that's not bad. That's
So
still
it's
good.
not too bad, but it ends quickly. Like
No, I bet.
It starts getting cold by end of October. Usually there's possible snow.
So what is your humidity like? Towards you haven't grown outside, I guess. Maybe I grow outside
big time, but the problem is humidity gets high in September. At the end of the summer, It just goes right up.
How many plants are you growing?
Usually I have a license for 10 outdoor.
Okay, yeah, 10's doable. Man, so I'll have around that many also, but I tell you what, I use a little bit of citric acid to help with bud rot prevention. And then I always keep fans outside. I got electric cords running and I just have fans blowing. That is the best thing to just get them dried out. And you can't really do it with anything because if you spray stuff on them, they're still going to be wet, and they're going to be wet from what you sprayed on it because it's so humid it can't evaporate, and it's still the liquids sit on your plants, and it's just not the best thing. They still get rotty. But man, just having fans out there on mine, that's what I'm constantly doing. I keep the insides gutted out real well. I don't let it get all big and bushy. I trim all the big fans are coming off. A lot of the smaller fans are coming off. Everything in the middle is getting lollipopped up and out of there. Those are just some of the things I do to try to help with all of that. Because yeah, in Oklahoma, the end of September, it's 100% humidity. It's 100 degrees. You can't water well because it'll just burn the plants up. Especially if you're growing in black pots and you water in the morning, and it's 100 degrees for the last 5 days. You're gonna cook the roots of your plants. It'll get
Just
really hot
steam
there.
them motherfuckers.
Yeah, so there's all kinds of things to deal with outside. It's a whole new animal growing
Oh
outside.
yeah, my issue was my plants got pretty big, like 7 feet to 10 feet, sometimes even past that, and just as round. So I was just like you were saying, you had to get the whole thing gutted out. Like if you were to look at it, it'd only be like a canopy, a spherical canopy.
Yeah.
But in my yard, the shape of the fences, the proximity to the fences and the trees have grown over the last 10 years of me being here. So the airflow has really changed. This year, I'm going to attempt like a tabletop kind of thing, like a scrog sort of grow, as opposed to just letting the tree be a tree. Well, I'm hoping that's what happens.
And I find, like, weather-wise, our rain season in the fall is so long, but we still have a lot of heat. So it sucks because we've tried fans outside, but then all of a sudden it starts to pour again, and then you gotta run and get all the fans, and it's a bunch of bullshit in the fall.
It is. It's a lot of work. Yeah, if it rains, that's a pain, man. That's the problem. Is rain.
The plants got taller than the wooden structures around them, so I couldn't really hang tarps because all the main flowers were above all the support for the tarp. So I was like, I threw a lot of bugs out last year.
My biggest problem is the one stormy day, and it triggers everything into flower if I'm not out there hustling, trying to get lights and all that stuff. Last year, I had plants that probably flipped into flower 4 or 5 times within 2 months.
That was actually a really interesting fucking question that some people in our Discord were talking about the other day. Was like, how is it, like a really good like cloudy day, 2 really good cloudy days, or a stormy day, can cause your shit to flower. One fucked up light cycle, like that outdoors can manage, to cause your shit to flower like that. I know I've seen it, and it's fucking wild. So how the hell does that happen?
How does it trigger? How does a stormy day trigger them?
Yeah, I mean, something like that, right? Because most of the time when we see it, it takes about 2 weeks to freaking trigger damn.
Yeah.
For when we take a light cycle down from say 18 to a 12 and 12, right? Usually it takes about a week, week and a half, 2 weeks, and then you start seeing your plant flowering. But like you said, a stormy fucking day, on a cloudy weekend, and all of a sudden your shit's fucking flowered out and wanting to re-veg when it's in the middle of summer. It's
the amount of photons that plant is receiving. That's the thing. It can, the lights can be a little dim. In an inside grow, that's not really going to happen. I would assume you're always going to have the lights the right way, but but outside, the plant has evolved to receive sunlight and grow in it and get darkness and flower in it. And whenever Mother Nature plays with those systems, she doesn't know what to do. But the amount of photons that plant receives is what happens. There's a cell in that plant, and I've read about this before, but I'm speaking way over my head. But there is a photocell in cannabis that whenever it has enough darkness, it triggers the plant to doing what it does in flower. That's what I've learned. So please talk, Carrie. If you know anything about that, talk, because I don't.
The last time I was on, I think I was talking about this. There's a red light receptor within there, and it's all about it moves fast when it's shoot. I was gonna look this up and I forgot to look it up. It moves fast in one direction and really, really, really slow in the other direction. So if you've got like a light trigger, like if you're close to town, you can really screw your plants up. So the farther away from like city life you are, and you can keep outdoor light. So you're talking outdoor stuff, right? You don't have as much control over it. Like when you're indoors, you've got full control and you can keep the light from hitting it. Much like a poinsettia in the wintertime where you're trying to give it like really, really dark conditions for like 16 hours a day, and then you introduce that light. It's that like quick response where it goes in one direction really fast, but the other direction is super slow. So the minute it hits, like you get like a little bit of light interruption, you screw that whole cycle up because of the difference in speed. But I was going to look it up and I forgot to do that.
Do you mean like the
So yeah,
speed of the
that's what I was
photons
talking
of
about
like
right
the
there.
color? Yeah, do you mean the speeds on the photon like color or like the color?
It's the way the plant processes the light.
The photosynthetic process.
Yeah.
G-Bay, have you ever seen that where other than when you put it out in spring and it re-veges, right? Have you ever seen it do it when it's been out there for a while up here? Because I've never seen that. They trigger it.
Not really, but I've had them not react like they should. Like I've had some, like I had one year where it re-vegged, like I put it out and it flowered a bit, and then it was trying to come back with the single leaves, and then the 3 blade leaves never fully came back, and the flowers that it set, they grew throughout the whole summer. And it constantly put off single leaf, so it got stuck in that mode.
Right. Okay. I've had that where like a re-veg in spring fucks up and never comes back.
Yeah. Gigantic.
But I wondered if maybe because we're so high up and we have such bad weather that the plants just get used to it, so we don't have like a stormy day for a week or 2 weeks doesn't affect us like it does in
Oklahoma. I've never had that. Like I've never noticed after
you know, you touched on that one, Shane, and that's one that I don't know if you can answer, Carrie, or not. But what the hell would cause a plant once it has started to flower to never, revert back into a re-veg? So like our cannabis plants, right? We can flip that thing into flower, say halfway through we decide we didn't like the growth of it or something, and just re-veg, hit it back into a longer light cycle, and it it transitions back and starts, just growing back to vegetative instead of flowering growth. But sometimes it's not often that it happens, but sometimes they just don't revert back from flower. They'll hit flower, and you could put that thing in 24 hours of light and it'll just stay there. No matter how much you play with that light cycle, it never wants to fix it. So is there a reason for that?
Would it be the amount of flower that it pushes that quickly? Because it would probably be a hormone imbalance at that point. Like the flower would cause a hormone to go through the plant that would inhibit it from going back to vegetation. So there's probably a tip point, right, where it's got too much of that hormone. Do you pluck the flowers from it when you want it to go back to vegetative growth?
I mean, that really depends on what you're trying to do with the plant, really. I mean, if it was an accidental, say no, right? Say you were just in the middle of flower and it just happened, right? Your timer or something fucked up and you never plucked or trimmed or done anything, that plant will still re-veg. But most of the time, we'll take a plant full harvest, decide that, our clone died and we have to have this plant again. So we'll just throw it back in, keep watering it, give it that longer light cycle, and get that plant to revert back into vegetative. So, and so, like I said, you can really torture these things and get them to come back. So it's really odd when, it just won't, re-veg.
I think it's hormonal. I mean,
well, I think maybe she's on to something that in certain plants, maybe there's a tipping point, like the snowball effect, like it's building up as it's going. And then once it hit that point, there's just no stopping it. And that's what it's, I don't know about yours, but when mine didn't, it budded like from top to bottom, like a plant I would never see. That specific plant would never look like that ever again, right? Because it would be fucked up. But you know, it looked like a haze when all was said and done, you know, just fucking flowered from top to bottom. But it normally didn't look like that. You know, it was a nice fucking arrowhead bud structure, you know, on all nodes. So
I wonder if it's hormones crossed with genetics and a few other things in there. I was listening to Todd McCormick's spiel a while ago, and he was talking about how he doesn't like to re-veg because he's got experience with, I think he was saying, more the northern or indica varietals. They, a lot of the times when you re-veg them, they will not come back growing as they were before the flip to flower originally. They might grow and you'll be happy with what you get, but it is not growing the same way it was. So something has changed in that genetic memory when you tried to do the re-veg or whatever. And then went on to from there. He didn't go into great detail about it, but mentioned like that's why he'll go through the growing out, cut clones, and do his hunts that way. So I wonder if there's it's just kind of hormone imbalances that are
intuitively it makes sense, right? If you're growing in the mountains of Afghanistan, that plant is not going to come back once it's done. It's winter. Whereas if you have an equatorial plant growing, you know, in Mexico, you know, sometimes those plants flower and then flower again.
I saw, man, I wish I would have, this is one of those articles I wish I would have saved. I don't even remember where I found it, but it was someone talking about in a greenhouse in California, I believe it was, where there was a cannabis stalk that looked like the stump of a freaking tree. And apparently this thing had been growing for 3 years consecutively, because they'd been able to keep it warm enough. And instead of harvesting the whole thing, you harvest kind of what you need and let it do its thing. Now, is this horseshit or not? I don't know, but they did show the picture of the stump, and yeah, it sure enough did look like it could make giant cannabis stalk. But, you know, photography tricks and BS stories it could be too, but it totally sounds believable.
He claimed it flowered.
Yeah,
and he was able to keep it like growing. I find that hard to believe.
Okay, well, hey, you live down in Cali, so you would definitely be able to.
So I can keep a plant alive for 10 plus years. My tomatoes can be outside for 3 years in a row. I have to hard prune them back to get them to revegetate. But once it really, I think, depends on if he's getting flowers off like specific shoots, but others are growing vegetatively. He might be able to get that, but once something goes to flower, you really have to trim it back hard. And I hesitate to think cannabis would handle that trim.
So with cannabis, there's a form of growing called monster cropping, and it's where you put the cannabis plant into flower. You try to get a big veg plant, then you put it into flower to about week 5 or 6, then you switch it back into veg, and what you'll have is a massive amount, as you all know, a massive amount of new bud branches growing out, because every single bract on the flower will be a new bud branch. And you count the bracts on a bud, you know, you're in the 50s or 100, depending on the bud. And that's every single bud. And so they'll just put out an unbelievable amount of shoots, and then you trim all those off and you have thousands of clones ready to cultivate immediately, you know. But that's a process you can use in cultivation. But every cannabis plant that I've ever re-vegged on purpose, it re-vegged. No matter even harvesting, like sometimes we grow out F1s and we grow them all the way to the end, and we didn't take clones off of some of them possibly, and we'll harvest the entire plant, leave one bud on there, maybe 2, and we'll let it re-veg. It'll take 2 to 3 months, but it will start to put out new shoots, and we'll clone off of that. So but I can totally see it's strain specific, really, to cut through it all. Strain specific. I'm sure there's some plants that do it better than others. Like you were saying, the origin of the plant. What has it evolved in specifically, you know, and what will it do in our environment could be two different things.
I think the biggest problem you would run into, I think in what Caribou alludes to, is the structure of it by the end after so many harvests. I can see where they would have kept it going for at least maybe 2 re-veggies. I can see, it getting real hard to continue after that. But the structure of that plant, you're going to start getting stems that are like the size of like your freaking forearm. Like it's not going to yield bud you want at that point. It's going to be hard. Like the whole structure of the plant has been just so changed, after that many years.
Once it re-veges, you don't want to just let it go and flower on its own. Like she was saying, you've got to clean that sucker up. It takes months to clean that thing up too, because you're cutting off new bud branches constantly. There's new bud branches growing off of those bracts, and you're doing that to every single branch. And you're really what I always had to do is just straight up lollipop it. Lollipop every single branch off, leave just the top buds, and start all over. That's the easiest way to re-veg.
I was going to say the quality of whatever flower you're wanting to get off of it, you're probably not going to get like super good quality flower and get it to re-veg at the same time, I guess is the direction I was going. So if it's like you're wanting to harvest to have smokable or usable flowers, right? You're not really going to get anything great off of the vegetative parts of it, or vice versa, right? So
if you're intentionally trying to grow a plant to re-veg it, it would have to go through the bud cycle, the flowering cycle, and once you re-vegged it, it just messes the plant up. The flower itself just gets all gnarly looking, and it has to start all over. That's the thing. It's like starting its life completely over from that one little bract of a flower. And like one of y'all were saying, it starts off with one leaf, and then it grows another single leaf, and then if it's healthy enough, it'll try to put out a 3-fingered leaf. If it's not healthy, it'll put out another single leaf, and it'll do that until it's healthy enough. And that's why you want to clean that sucker up, because it's trying to now, once it re-veges, now it's trying to create a new branch it just exponentially timed the amount of nutrient it needs to start all these new branches, and so you got to clean it way, way, way back, and it will re-veg into a pretty plant again. It'll look normal. Normal, I should say. Like the bottom of it's going to look weird, but the top, once it grows out again, it looks normal,
If that's your goal to like grow it for as long as you possibly can, I mean, that's a cool goal.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, it's possible. It like he's saying, you're getting into things that get almost unharvestable, but really it's about, just constantly working with the new growth that comes off it. I guess as we learned last time, Tyler was supposed to be here tonight, kind of like a fig tree, right? You're always trying to get the new growth that's coming off the plant. That's where the good flowering sites are when you have like a re-veg.
With the cannabis plant, though, it's not really designed to like stick around, like Carrie was saying there. So like, if you were to re-veg it, or am I just stoned and might have missed this in the conversation that just happened? But how many times could you potentially re-veg it before that rootstock just says, nah?
I've seen it done probably 4 or 5 times on a plant. And I mean, after like it starts to get knuckles on it, like a those plants that are outside. I can't remember the name. I almost said it. Crepe myrtle. They start getting those knuckles on them because when that bud started to grow out again, it's just a big old clump of branches coming out, and that little gnarly thing is always kind of there. But again, above it will be the new looking plant that looks normal. But I've seen mothers that are about 8 years old, but those are grown vegetatively. They never went into, that I know of, ever went into flower. Those are just grown to the cut so good they just want to keep cloning and harvesting and cloning and all that. They can go for a long time, I guess.
Yeah, you can do the same thing. I mean, the way you treat a mother like that, the way you treat like a bonsai, and the way you would treat like a monster crop. You put all that shit together, that's how you would keep a monster crop alive and going. Because eventually you're gonna have to play with that root zone to clean it up if you got it in a pot. You know, if you have some way to do it outdoors, that's amazing. But
I just picture like a big lumpy looking gnarly old apple tree looking stump with the
that's exactly what I think of.
Yeah, if you've seen all the really old olive trees from like Tuscany,
yeah. Yep.
And it's a new beautiful one just sticking off the top of it.
So it's an interesting one. I'm sorry, I'm going to sidetrack to a different part because you touched on it a bit earlier that you don't get to play around with a lot of water out in California, right? Like, so things like watering your garden and things are kind of frowned upon, you know, when you have like the watering or, you know, water restrictions, shit like that. So how do you guys get away with doing things like growing with limited water out there in that situation?
Like personal garden or farmers?
To go with shit. Let's talk about intensive water needed. So let's say farmers. You know, how are they dealing with the needs?
They water. Put it this way. The craziest shit I've seen out here, they're putting drip line in sweet corn rows. I mean, that's how desperate to get the water just to the plant and just to the plant only they are out here. So they spend gobs of money to put drip line out that's only one season. It's disposable drip line into sweet corn pads. But we have the fortune of being able to triple crop any field because our season in the winter is so mild. Even as far north, I mean, I'm as north as you know, even more north than you are, bro. And I still have the temperate temperatures. So the coldest we get is freezing at 32 degrees Fahrenheit. That's like the coldest we get. So we can grow, you know, anything in the winter on top of the spring crop and then on the fall crop or even a summer crop. So we've got a lot of flexibility to use the seasons to our advantage. But yeah, they're drip lining everything out here.
All right, so let's take this off to your personal garden. What do you do for your personal garden to say save on some water, save on some money, do any of that? Is there anything special that you do, or you just suck it up and water it?
I water, or my garden is for mental health purposes, not for eating. Honestly.
So you're not doing a whole lot of.
I don't care if they want to restrict my water. Like, we all just like water because we're like, whatever. This is my mental health thing. You're not growing. You can't possibly grow enough out here with the limited water we have in the summertime. Even if you have irrigation, you can't water deep enough to get it to really grow well. So you just grow kind of okay in the summertime. I have an amazing soil profile because I've been composting like crazy, and that does retain the water to some degree. But I literally can water for an hour out there, and the next day I come and it's dry as a bone. It's crazy how fast the water, because the air is so, like, we have 2% humidity in the summertime. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Right. So, no matter how much organic matter you try to shove in that soil, you ain't gonna retain. Yeah.
No. In fact, we would be considered tropical soils in some senses because the nutrient goes into the plant immediately once it drops. It's like just like tropical soils.
No, I'm thinking like there's always the humidity. Anytime you have something like, say, the ground and the air, and there's a difference in moisture levels, they're going to try to balance out, right? Or like the air is going to suck the moisture out, or what? Does that happen with any type? Like, how does that work with like nutrients? Does the air ever rob the soil, or vice versa? Like, because I always hear of like nitrogen being pulled and stuff like that. Can we touch on that at all?
That's a good question. Like the microbes would break stuff down and excrete it because, you know, they like fart too. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. So gases are released all the time right out of the bacterial matter and stuff in the soil. That good question. I don't think that it's gonna like balance out with the soil. It's all, you know, that moisture level for us. It's all the moisture that causes the problem out here with able to keep plants growing really well. I don't know that I know of any studies where they've tried to look at like equilibriums between like air and soil or air and microbes or things like that.
Yeah, it would be a neat study.
Where did that
bacteria farts? I know. I had to say it.
I was gonna say, ma'am, we don't fart around here.
Yeah, someone stopped your YouTube.
I gotta fix hers. All right, hold on. Let's see. Damn, I can't.
I was
do
like, wow.
We're all microbes. All we are microbes, man. We're farting like they are. We're a bunch of microbes walking on this earth.
It sounds like it's my sister who's got the echo problem. Haha, Carrie. God damn it. Do you have your like?
No, it's you, Daniel. You gotta hit your mute or something.
No, that's hers.
Oh, it's hers.
Yeah. Do you have your shit in? Hold on, I am not unmuting that.
I'm trying to fuck with the echo cancel. I can't even edit her mic settings right now.
Yeah, we got a couple fucking cool echoes now.
The screen jumped.
All right, let's see here. All right, so we have. All right, so Shane's got an echo and Carrie's got an echo. Let's see if we just take one of them off, see what this does. Hey, Carrie, unmute yourself. All right,
can you hear me?
Right.
All right, small echo.
You got an echo? Sometimes I have an echo and sometimes I don't.
All right, we're getting it. All right, we're good at the moment. Let's see. All right, so where were we then?
Microbes fart.
Microbes fart. Microbe farts. Yeah, we were fucking talking about microbe farts.
Yes.
Why were we talking about microbe farts?
Because they do.
Because they do, and they do work. Caprog.
Yes.
Man, this show gets all fucking fast.
Yeah. Been 1 hour? Dang. I'm gonna have to go inside and put my kids to bed, y'all.
All right, so you hopping off for the evening? You're gonna come back and join us when you're done.
If y'all still on, I'll join you. I gotta go in there and make sure they brush their teeth and go put them in bed and all that good stuff. So if you're still on, I'll hop back on. Give me just a bit.
We'll be here for another hour.
Okay.
For sure.
Give me a bit. All right.
Sounds good, man.
Hey, if not, it was great talking to you tonight.
Yeah, you too, boys. No worry. I'm gonna try to come back.
All right.
Oh yeah.
Sweet. So, why were we talking about microbe parts? How did that get started? Let's get back on that. I want to talk about microbe parts.
I don't know. It was I was spitballing there.
Oh, okay.
Because the conversation was, is there some kind of balance between the air like nitrogen and the soil nitrogen, right? So I was spitballing like what could possibly like happen, right? So they release gases just like we do, either through respiration or their decomposition of things.
Yeah, and right, and what is it? Even some of your nitrogen fixing plants, they just take it out of the air, and then somehow or another they push it down into the fucking root zones. Right?
Kind of like how you have what was it, a nitrogen generator? Is it nitrogen that they put in car tires nowadays instead of just air? Not the same kind of thing, but a mechanical version, or just takes nitrogen or whatever it is out of the air, fucking condenses it, stores it, or whatever, and then.
Well, actually, I think I've just had a dipshit dumbass moment on that one. I believe, right, your plants that your nitrogen fixers, they don't fix until they basically rot down in the ground, right? And then that's when the fixing of the nitrogen happens.
Well, they have a bacteria that inhabits the node, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the bacteria stores the nitrogen in their bodies, and then they would die off and release it to their plant partner.
Okay,
but
so
their plant partner doesn't really need it. Their plant partners aren't strong users of that. So it's the remainder of that plant part after it dies that is left for the next plant that gets more utilization of that nitrogen than the previous plant.
then the off gas part of the nitrogen that comes off of it.
Right. It would be as it breaks down later after it's died, the symbiotic relationship has died and they don't need each other anymore, and they die off and leave their components behind.
Gotcha.
To be eaten then by the next set of plants that come about. And, I think we talked about how I did that study where I actually infected like the plants in sandy soil that didn't have any kind of like growable media, right? The plants it barely would hold water. It was like almost like diatomaceous sand. And we put the rhizome growing bacteria in there and some of the plants, and not on others. And you could see an improvement, but those plants naturally have those bacteria on their seed coat when they go into the soil. So you don't even need to buy those inoculants. I mean, you guys are talking about like trying to save money the best you can. I mean, you don't have to hardly buy any of these improvement type things to grow a really good plant, especially if you're in any kind of glacial till areas. Like my brother is in the most beautifully glacial tilled soil there possibly can be, with like really deep prairie roots, and his outdoor land is like fantastic over there.
Yes.
So you don't even need to do anything to your soil. Your plants are going to take what they want.
No, I we do it to maximize production out of them. I want to get extra. I want more nutrient density. I'm just making sure it's there just in case, in all reality. And making sure that I'm giving back, what the plants have taken out, right? I mean, they take it out, you gotta put something back. So, since I am taking, some of the tomato, right? I'm not giving the full nutrients of that back. So I have to amend with something to give some of that back. So that's what I'm doing. That's my thought process as I'm growing, because you're absolutely right. All I'm trying to do is keep up and just make sure everything's happy and has what it needs. And it's most certainly going to do it without me. I'm just trying to make it do it just a little bit better. But
yeah, and that's valuable for sure. But you don't have to spend a lot of money to do that. Like if you see somebody cutting down a tree, like, and you have some like corner your property, like have them dump that tree, right? You know, that they've ground down into wood chips or something. Have them pop it on the corner of your property and let it just rot. See, it just did it again.
I just unmuted. Does it?
hey,
Can you
Hank,
hear
take
me
and pick
okay?
your phone up. Just take it off of like the surface or whatever. Usually that's where the echo comes from.
Oh, cool. Okay. Is it echoing
Yeah.
now?
I don't think so.
Cool.
Yeah, a little bit.
So, Carrie, do you think buying microbial bottles is a waste of money if you're growing outside?
Yes, depending on your weather. Like my I can control like my situation a little better because every day is like the same here. But if you've got a lot of storm weather that happens, you just like wash that out, or it goes away really fast, whatever you do. So you don't have to do a lot to get things going. If you have a really controlled environment, like you guys do a lot of indoor grows, then by all means go nuts and like control the shit out of it. That's the horticulturist in me that comes out. But then the hippie naturalist in me that comes out when I'm like outdoors and I can't control stuff. It's just like let nature do its thing, right? So outdoors is tough because you're always trying to control what you can't control, if that makes sense. So I'm from the Midwest. At the blink of an eye, you can have the most beautiful weather change to the craziest storm that you've ever seen. And it comes out of nowhere, and no weatherman can predict it. Off the coast of California, where I'm at, every day they can tell you exactly what it's going to be, and it's exactly spot on. I mean, they've got it nailed down out here. But
I
we
think
never
we just
had
pay
that
our
bullshit in the
meteorologist.
Midwest.
Sorry.
That's all right. What'd you say?
I said I think we just pay our meteorologist less.
Well, I mean, it's like the only job in the Midwest where you can like get your job wrong like 50% of the time and still make a living.
Right.
But if they tried to do that here, you would lose your job because, I mean, you have like, there's no excuse where I live. Every day is the same. It just gets a little hotter or a little colder. That's it. But, you know.
So on that, when you were talking about like the seed coat, right, and what comes on the seed coat, and saving some of the money with these things, so these like mycorrhizae products and things like that you add down there. So you're saying basically, what is the benefit to that is basically nothing because your seed coat has everything you want. But what about, so a lot of these times, say a lot of these guys are using these inoculations and these things like that in, a bagged soil that you've bought from the store, right? So you take that in and you get some like Pro Mix, right? I'm sure you're familiar with Pro Mix. It's pretty all over the fucking world.
Very standard.
Yeah. So you take a seed, you pop her in there, and then, right. So as the seed comes out, it should have everything it needs. But once you have got that seedling, the taproot, it's starting to do its thing. Is there much of a benefit to having any of these amendments at that point? Now that you're using, say, a bagged soil and not using, good old Mother Nature.
My honest opinion, no. I grew them in sand, and there was a little bit more activity, but not enough to justify the cost. Like if you want to do like a cost, like recovery, like cost benefit analysis to it, heck no, like the cost of it doesn't justify like the tiny percentage of benefit we got from even growing it in such a raw sand, no nutrient, anything type of soil. There was no reason to add that. But you know, like if you're trying to like feed your plants while they're growing, sure, why not? Like use your like you guys are doing some type of like almost like a kombucha type thing, or growing like live bacteria. That doesn't hurt anything.
Right. So for me, it was always the more of the overuse of it, because right, it doesn't hurt anything, and you can kind of get away. It's almost always going to be beneficial. You know what I mean, to the plant. So using it is almost never a downside, but buying a ton of it, you know, gets expensive real fucking fast.
Well, yeah, if you've got like a ton of disposable cash, like go for it, whatever, who cares? But if you really want to just get to the nuts and bolts of it, you don't have to spend hardly any money to do it.
Well, that was one thing I think I've always laughed about is, and I think you're kind of on the same page, compost, right? If you can make a decent compost, you pretty much just fill a fucking pot with compost, plant in that, and be done. Compost, you know, and that would give you, you're going to struggle a little bit, right? Because you're not exactly working in an, you know, it's not going to be the right texture. Things are going to not like it the best, but you can absolutely just fucking grow in it just fine. And, you know, off you go.
If you could get some native soil with like a little bit of clay, because you need like the clay to hold the ions, you know, the plants take up the raw ionic form of everything, right? So they need like the sodium ion, they need the calcium ion, they need, you know, the ionic form of all those, potassium, you know, nitrogen is like NH4s and things like that. They need the like little small structures, right? So you need a little bit of like some kind of clay or something in there that's going to capture those and hold on to them. Kind of it's sticky, right? They stick to it temporarily until the plant pulls it off there. So any chance you can to get a little bit of like clay in there. You don't want a lot of clay. Clay is hard on plants.
One of the things I've started doing in the last, since I guess it was about 2 years ago, I made a batch of soil of my own from scratch using going out and harvesting shit from nature. It was out of my parents' yard a few hours north of me, and they basically live on a clay farm. And so I took a bunch of that back with me in those like reusable shopping bags, and I'll grind a bunch of that up and do like a top dressing with that. To just throw that in there, thinking along the lines of like rock dust and stuff like that. And that's what really all clay is like the finest in the like in the rock particulate world, right? You got like your fucking boulders, rocks, pebbles, etc., all the way down to silt, and then clay being the finest of them. I'm thinking like, so if you got clay and it is the finest of the particles, they should not be more quickly bioavailable to the plant, to my way of thinking.
Right. Well, the clay, they don't use that. It's just the structure that holds the nutrients. If it's true clay, right? It just holds the nutrients that the plants want to use. It doesn't. The plants don't like eat the clay so much. The root doesn't absorb it. It just holds the nutrient next to the root structure, and it sucks it in, right, so to speak.
Okay, because the way I do it was I read it in the book or understood it was like because your clay is made up of like your aluminums, your potassiums, your so it's just kind of slowly breaks down, and that's how it kind of does its thing.
I think in the way like if I was to think about it like hydroponically, if you were playing with like let's say vermiculite, right? Vermiculite, just think of what vermiculite is, but there's really nothing going on there, right? It's kind of like a sandy, dirty weirdness, but it's inert, right? So you throw your fucking your salt nukes down on there, and that's what holds it down there by the root so that your root can grab it. You just think of clay the exact same way as that, right?
Clay. Here's a way to think about it. Clay is like a plate, like a dinner plate, and all your nutrients are on top of your dinner plate, right? Your calcium, your potassium, etc., are all on top of that dinner plate, waiting for the plant to, like, the roots of the plant to fork it up and take it in. So the clay is just like a plate structure that holds like the food for the plant. So that's probably the best way I can describe it.
Makes sense.
Hey, I think any 3-year-old would get that. So it's a little over my head, but I got you. I think.
It's almost like a magnet.
Yeah, just right. Let's see. Did you motherfucking house that right? It's called cation exchange, right?
Right.
Yeah. So it's where it takes off the blah blah blah. Yeah. Anyway, I'm not smart enough to fucking explain that. I've smoked too much, but if anyone wanted to, go for it. I think he explained it pretty damn good, though.
Mom says veg scrap tea works great. She must be listening.
See, I told you, okay, Alex, Mom's on your fucking shit too. Veg scrap tea, hell yeah.
She makes when I was a kid, well, when I was getting into like the organic farming, organic gardening, she would embarrass us so bad by picking up everybody's lawn scraps and you name it. Oh my gosh. She was crazy.
Right. We would go into the store to go buy groceries and come out with a cart of groceries and a cart of rotten shit that smelled like crap. And she's like, load it up, kids. It was never that bad. I'm kidding, Mom. I know you're watching shit.
No, she was that bad. But we weren't above dumpster diving either, to be honest.
No, hell no, still aren't. But yeah, and hey, right, everybody's throwing this shit away. I mean, I need it. I need lots of fucking organic material. I like to grow things, and I like to grow a lot of it. So, well, I can use that stuff.
Fuck, if it can be recycled, why not? Like, it's to be honest, it's one of those things that that never really even crosses my mind. And it makes absolute sense. So, yeah, grocery stores will have excess produce that either gets banged up, outdated, and starting to fucking wilt and fucking turn on you and stuff like that. That is not going to sell. So, yeah, of course you're going to throw it out. You're like, why not? Like, yeah, compost, jadons, like, it makes sense.
Like, in this day and age, you would think, like, and even like, especially like your Whole Foods, all these places that are trying to be organic, you would think that they would just save some of this shit for people like, okay, Calix, like me, like, you know, my mom, shit like that, to just come pick it up for compost, right? Or fucking have a bin just out there where they're just actively doing it. You know, there's no drawback to it. It helps reduce their waste and cost. Like, oh, why is this not being done in some of these places? You know,
it's mandated in California now.
It's what?
Mandated.
So these places are now starting to actually compost all their stuff or offer it up for places?
They're required to. It has to go to green waste facilities, or it can't go into the municipal waste stream.
Excellent.
Yeah, I was listening to Leighton Morrison discuss all that stuff, that there'll be new requirements for restaurants and anybody that has food wastes, that it has to be reused, you know, for, I guess, soil making or something like that. I mean, it's you know, there's so much. I try to go to stores, or like trying to just connect. Like my latest thing is I connected with a mowing company here in my hometown that will mow yards, and I just told them to bring all the mowed grass they can, bring it to me, you know, and that because they have to take it to the dump. But usually it's what they do, and you have to pay by weight for dump stuff. And so I told them bring it all right here and just dump it all, and I'll deal with it at the time. because that is all going to go right back into compost, fertilizers, all kinds of benefits for my growing. But a lot of the places that I asked, they say that by law they have to throw it away. They cannot give it out, can't hand it to people. The waste, if it has the expiration date on it, you know, it has to go into the dumpster. They can't just hand it to me. They can't put it in a box for me specifically. You know, they're like, what I've come to learn is don't ask if you can dumpster dive. Just go dumpster dive. Because if you ask, they'll be like, yeah, I just kind of don't want you back there, blah, 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 blah. If you just go get it, no one says a word to you. They probably think you're kind of a gross homeless person or something like that. It's like, nope, I got 5 kids in a home and a couple jobs, man. I freaking do this. I dumpster dive. That is all good stuff.
Yeah, all those I work harder than you do moments, but I do this to get through still. That's I think it's great though. It's because I think of myself, like I said, I'm shy. I'm not the person to go start that conversation. But at the same time, about not even 2 blocks from my house, there is a great little corner grocery store that we always try to support. Like that's where I go for meat, because it's the only one store in town that sells decent meats and shit like that, and start freaking getting all their fucking spec produce and shit like that. And then since I don't have room at my place, I'll bring it to my in-laws and drop it off in their yard.
I got a quick question. So, you know, when they start requiring like restaurants and shit like that start doing that, what are the odds that it's really going to start getting fucked up, right? All the fats, the oils, the salty stuff, you know, the pre-packaged, overly, you know, processed food that they're prepping with that are going to go back into the food because they're just going to start adding it like old mixed food or, you know, old, you know, just, you know, food they made that shouldn't be mixed together that, you know, inevitably is going to happen when they start doing that. How bad is that going to fuck up those compost streams?
Well, a restaurant typically doesn't have like very much prepared food, like processed stuff. Most restaurants are pretty like really close to like raw ingredient type starting like blocks for the garbage. So
you remember, I'm talking from the Midwest, right? That's not what's happening around here.
Well, yeah, I mean, even like pasta or something like that, that's still pretty raw ingredient worthy.
Oh, okay, but say now this motherfucker made spaghetti out of it, and now they're throwing that in the compost stream. You know, that has all the extra salt, all the extra, you know, all the extra stuff that they've added to it. But you're still looking, you know, most people are still looking at that as something that's perfectly fine and compostable, and it is. But then you still have to deal with, you know, taking the sodium out of there and things like that. So, you know, that's what I'm trying to get after. How bad is that going to start affecting things?
You know, let's just go to coastal growing, right? Like there's a lot of salt intrusion on like agricultural soils, and that is a problem, and they just move further and further out. But in the case of doing that within like a compost heap or something like that, I don't know that that's been because it's a new, every time they make a new requirement in the regulatory world, it creates another new problem, right? So this is probably one of the next new problems that they're going to have to solve. Like what happens with the excess nutrient that goes into all that compost. That they haven't done it to a big enough degree that we can see it affect the use of those composts quite yet. I think that's going to be one of the future challenges that we're going to have to figure out how to solve. Yeah. Either they have to chelate something out of it, which means binding it with something else like chloride or whatever again, right?
So in the process of going natural, we're gonna have to figure out how to fix all of our other fuck ups to take it more to do more shit. Anyway, yep.
Probably.
Sounds right.
Wouldn't
Sounds
life
right.
just be so much better if the whole world ate just organic, natural foods?
Hey, well,
Damn it.
I think one of the answers that are coming along to this question right here of what to do with food waste that might be high in certain, nutrient or something like that is microbiology. That microbiology, the higher populations of microbiology in composts are able to handle and balance out a lot of these unbalanced composts or food scraps or things like that. They've got microbiology that's eating petroleum down for spill, trying to figure out how to deal with spills through microbiology, stuff like that. So I would assume what I always tell people is whenever they say, I got coffee grounds from Starbucks and somebody DM me and said, well, don't you know they spray all this stuff on it? That's something that we are not going to get away from. That's it. I mean, I can't guarantee every bit of food compost or animal poop that I gather. It's not what it's. I try to do my best, but I can't guarantee anything. The point of it all is a bigger picture that you are implementing regenerative practices into your gardening and just simply into your lifestyle. That if we start doing these things, they do catch on. We talk about them on shows like this, and people at their homes start to actually compost a little bit if they can. It's the practices that start to change mentalities and lifestyles. These are just the thing that I always just say, man, practice it. Like start something. Just start a little bit of that organic work, and it will start to change your entire worldview. When you start realizing, like, man, I could reuse a lot of things, it changes your understanding of waste and recycling, then living in the environment that you live in and what can be used and things like that. So I I say go for it, compost it all, get those microbes high, the population's high, and let the microbiology start to balance it out for you. Because I think that's going to be the answers for a lot of that stuff.
So some of those are the reasons why Elaine Ingham was saying she hates like municipal compost, right? But like Mom is saying her bugs love spaghetti. Right? So you can't be afraid to like put that out there and just see what happens. You just have to go for it. And I mean, you're totally right. The microbes take care of a lot of. They're using microbes for bioremediation in brownfields and toxic waste sites and things like that. So how can that not be good to just go for it and let kind of nature take its course on things?
Yeah. Yeah, right, right. And all of our regenerative practices, all of us. And I think that's when I get into the overuse of microbes, is when we get to play with the free microbes that we make, right? We're doing all this work to get all these funky microbes and all this stuff in our JLF and our, JMS and our fucking labs and, all these things we make. And I sprinkle it like Frank's Red Hot. I put that shit on everything. So, it's, and that's good. If I was not making these, products myself, I wouldn't have the willy-nilliness to them that I do, because, these are systems that they're in check, right? They're added, they're constantly like kind of working on themselves. And most of us are working on a short cycle plant, one pot, like, like we could do it without any of these bottles easily. It's gonna, collect naturally on its own. We're just helping it along and trying to do a lot better. So yeah, making them, yeah, fucking throw it at it. Microbe the fuck out of everything. It helps make everything stronger. But when like I said, if you're buying it though, it's use it like you're supposed to. Just it's not doing you any benefit by just getting completely crazy with it on one cycle of soil. That's only 2-3 months old.
Let's have a public service announcement and have either Carrie or OK Calix tell us the easiest way to get started. Are we just putting green waste in a bucket with water? Get GB and I started.
So I have a little guinea pig, and I call him my like little composter. So all of my like kitchen scraps that he can eat are my compost, like that I immediately dress any plants outside with. I have no problem putting those straight on my plants at all. And his little waste is got like Timothy hay grass and things like that that just go right in my garden next to my tomato plants. I don't have problems with that. So if you have like a little animal that doesn't eat meat, I'm game for it, even just that. So that's what I do, because that's I live in an area that I do have to struggle with my compost because it will get rats. I have a palm tree that lives right next to my compost, and rats love palm trees. And I have fairly close by neighbors that have chickens, and they attract the rats too. And so I have to be pretty careful about composting in my yard. So my little guinea pig is my little go-to for like my immediate top dressing on my plants. So he's my little buddy.
Yeah, that's awesome. There's a good little animal manure like that is good stuff. It kind of depends on your environment. To answer your question, I don't know what all you can do. Like in my environment, the first thing I tell people is it kind of, again, if you're wanting nutrient or if you're wanting compost. Like if you're wanting nutrient, if you're trying to switch over and start making your own little bit of nutrient, that's when you want to make that JLF. Load a 5-gallon bucket full of food scraps or some green leaves, mowed grass, just the mixture of all that, cover it with water. After 1 month, you can use 8 cups in a 5-gallon bucket, and it will feed your plants. It'll feed big plants, small plants, everything. In 1 year, which is my JLF is at 12 months right now, I use 1 pint to a 5-gallon bucket, and I feed huge plants with it. And it's all free. That has saved me the most money, was starting the JLF and not ever buying nutrients ever again. I mean, I have nutrients that people will send me to use, or they ask me if I'll post it and stuff like that. And I don't use any of it. The one thing I do use sometimes is Terabiotics Ultra Bio Boost. It's like a recharge, except it has way more bacteria in it. And I'm a high bacteria guy because cannabis is a short-term plant and bacteria works much faster than fungus. In my no-tills, there's balance of fungi and bacteria. But making a JLF for your nutrient is the best way to start saving money. The other best way to start saving money in an environment like mine is starting your compost, because that's going to be the soil. You won't have to buy nutrient or soil at all if you start those two things. For the first cannabis became legal in 2018. And for the first maybe the first year, I grew it in Fox Farm soil, and it got so expensive to fill a 10-gallon bucket, a grow bag, that I was like, I got to do something. And so I had composted before, and I was composting at the time, but it was just for some little bit of garden spot. And so that's when I really got serious and got a lot of barrels and stuff, started composting, and I started to get to where I had enough to fill a lot of 10-gallon pots or 20-gallon pots for indoor growing. All of my gardening outside, I was able to cover all my no-till spots with plenty of compost and have some left over to make IMO4. What I do now is I grow in IMO4, which I don't know how much you know about the K&F side of stuff, but IMO 1, 2, and 3, and then finally get to IMO 4, which is just a lot of scraped up, leafy, barky, wood chippy material that's been highly inoculated, mixed with compost. And now I grow out a homemade IMO 4, and it is fantabulous. But composting and JLF will get you on a path of zero money spent, eventually zero money spent. You got to get your genetics and your grow pots or your lights or whatever you're going to do, but soil and nutrient can be totally taken from Mother Earth, and JLF and composting are the way to do it.
Yeah, honestly, I'm surprised that wasn't her very first reaction, was just compost, get right there. I think she was going a little thinking small scale pot, like you're going to do a little something to feed, because I'm absolutely like right with OK Calix on that. Like, and my sister would too. Like, the compost is definitely going to be where you start. You know, that adds most of your nutrients and all the organic matter that's going to help, you know, it's making your your bacteria happy. It's making your fungal colonies happy. It's making your microbes happy, you know, so that's getting your organic matter in there.
Yeah, I got the horse poop and worm farms going, so I got the compost part, but I could definitely do a 5-gallon bucket with some green waste to help me along, I think.
Yeah, man. Dude, I absolutely love it. I'm using my JLF bucket outside right now is going on like 2.5 years. And I use it at about 2 cups. I basically use it at a cup per gallon. And that shit will get a fucking plant moving. Like, it's not just lightly feeding a plant, it's feeding a plant and heavily. And that's, and basically kind of, I take a cup out, I add a cup of rainwater, and that doesn't really change the nutrient intensity of what I'm using the next time. You know what I mean? So, it's really, like OK Alex said, you get into the point where you're feeding it and you're not spending anything to do it. You're literally nothing, rain barrels and fucking shit out of you there and some time, and off you go. So.
And that bucket should be closed, or can I leave it open to the rainwater?
After about a month, you're gonna want it closed, just because it's gonna smell like baby poop, and it'll only smell more like baby poop the older it gets. Because it's anaerobic bacteria. It's the same bacteria that are in our guts, and they're stinky. Jadam is very, very cheap, but extremely stinky.
And it will attract a lot of things. Okay. So typically keeping them closed is a very good idea. In my experience with them anyway. So I do have like one little slit cut in mine for a little bit of gas exchange, because my lid closes pretty nice and tight. I do want a little bit of gas exchange in there, so I have a little lid or a little slit cut in there for that. And I don't mind the bugs getting in there and doing a little work too. The Jadam for me stays all out. The fucking bucket stays all outside. I don't bring any of that shit inside. So, I don't mind if the bugs get it. The little bugs get in it a little bit. But I don't want any of the big critters getting in there sniffing around and fucking around. And the first couple years I made a bucket, when I didn't cover it like that, they definitely come sniffing and fucking around with the bucket, knocking it over and digging through it. So
yeah, my JLF right now has maggots crawling out of it. It's just what it is. That's what it's what Mother Nature is using right now. JLF's like compost. It'll go through growth stages of bacterias and stuff. Like new colors will come up, new biofilm looks will come up. Compost, you'll get new infestations of things. 2 years ago I had an ant infestation. Last year I had clover mites. This year I got fungus gnats. It's just how it is. They'll go away once the food sources leave. You just got to let the natural process happen.
Have you seen those fucking those bio buckets that collect? They're made to collect the black soldier flies and their larvae and use those. Dude, I need to make one of those. That thing looks fucking bad. And I know you've been playing with a lot of black soldier fly larvae.
Oh, yeah.
Seems like something you might need to get into too.
I know, I saw that. That's a cool little contraption. That's pretty neat. During July, my compost bins will be probably 50% black soldier flies. The whole thing is just moving and rumbling and shrinking by the day. And I want this year, Chris Trump and them are doing some new IMO with the bugs in it and all that stuff. and I can't even remember what they call it now. But
I saw that shit. What was that? Steve, Pokemonic
yeah,
Steve. What was
yeah,
that
he's
last
doing it
summer?
too.
Yeah, doing that shit with the crickets. And I was like, oh, because I like to do that collection too. And I was like, ooh, bug zapper. So I'm going to shake out a bunch of that shit in my, bug
Yeah,
zapper out
I've
a bunch
done
of
that.
dead ass bugs, shake them out into my rice, and then fucking inoculate it and see how it does.
Yeah, I like to try a little bit of that with those black soldier flies. Maybe I don't know. I might not, but I'm just trying to figure out other things to do.
I'll tell you, your bucket last year was what got me thinking about the black soldier flies and how fast those fucking things were taking down your compost pile, man. I was like floored how fast those things fucking worked.
Yeah, they are ferocious eaters. That apple that I have is a little sticker. I stuck an apple. One morning I stuck it. Well, what had happened was I put a bunch of fruit in my compost during the summertime, and it was just a high population of black soldier flies at the time, and they ate half of a pineapple in a day. It was like, golly, and I stuck a mango in there. They ate through the skin, ate through the mango. I have a picture of the mango, and then I stuck an apple in there. And within a day, they'd eaten half of an apple, and I pulled that apple out of the compost, and it was half apple and half black soldier fly in the shape of that apple. It was so freaking awesome. But they are ferocious, man. They'll eat meat. They'll eat anything you put in there. I don't know if they eat my worms or not, but the red wigglers will be nowhere to be found when the black soldier flies are heavy. I'm assuming they go down to the ground or something if it's because it's really hot when black soldier flies show up.
I do believe yeah, one, you don't want it's usually too hot, and two, they will attack the worms from my understanding. I don't think the soldier flies give a fuck. I think they eat whatever they can get their mouths around. And worms are squishy, so they fucking can bite it. Yeah, that's the only thing I would hate, man. If I seen them little bastards attacking my worms, we'd fight. I like my worms. My worms are my buddies.
Yeah, they're probably not very tough compared to a soldier fly. Hoorah!
Yeah, see, but that's the fucked up part. Once it turns into a fly, it's a bitch and it's like useless, except for its poop. Like, right? Isn't it like a black soldier fly? Like, doesn't even really like eat in its lifespan, or doesn't like eat like something about its mouth is all fucked up. I don't remember.
They're nasty. They're nasty. Like, they'll live a few weeks. They'll start off small, get big, turn black or brown looking, and then most of them just die off and become frass. But some of them turn into flies again. I don't know anything about them. That's my extent of my knowledge.
Yeah, I was trying to remember after I saw that fucking bucket thing. I was like, "Ooh, let's do a little knowledge," and then I got sidetracked. So.
If you get black soldier flies in your compost, you are good to go. And they're from Mother Nature. That's the thing. You don't have to buy those at all. You just put out some food scraps, and you will have them when the temperature starts to warm up.
I want that terpene profile. That sounds amazing.
Sounds stinky.
Yeah, that's what we.
What did it say?
It said a dead skunk with a mango in its mouth in a bucket. Yeah, that's some that's some funk I want right there.
To get down something funky like that.
If it was that easy, I'd have a few buckets on the go with some weird shit.
Well, how do you know? You're about to learn. Maybe that's the key.
All right, let's get a fucking skunk, I guess.
Skunk and a mango. Now, what kind of mango is
pineapple? I'd do a skunky pineapple.
Sorry, it clearly says mango. You don't want to find it. The directions say.
Yeah. G-Bay's a fucking man, all right? He doesn't read directions.
Never have, never will. Learn that from
He's a fucking welder. He's a welder. Do you think he has fucking directions? No, he makes directions, all right? He looks at that thing and he says, this is how it's supposed to fucking happen.
They're usually on fire at one point and unlegible after a week or so. So whatever. You got your after a bit.
Yeah, usually by the end of the first day, there's so much soot and shit on them, you can't read them. By the end of the second day, they're so burned up, you can only read half of it. And then you just throw them away by the end of the third day because, fuck, they're unlegible. Totally. I'm going to get some more water. I'll be right back.
Every good welder needs, like, one of those guys around that just is neat and proper. Not really good with the welder and the fabricating part of things, but you give him your papers. You're like, hey, you. When I need this important paper, I'll get it from you because I'm over here in the mud puddle, half on fire. So, yeah, I can't wait to get outside and get growing again this summer. There's a certain feeling I get walking out the back door and getting hit by that wall of green. So it's like I need my boost. The typical gray spring starting to get to me a bit.
I'm with you.
You have a 4-month grow period.
At least, yeah.
Yeah, that's not much, right? So yeah, you're jonesing for it.
Yes.
I think this.
Yeah, there's no doubt, Carrie, that growing is a mental health pill that you can take, man. Because during COVID, they didn't tell you anything about getting outside, growing, exercising, nothing. It was just locked down, shut up, be quiet. That's zero care about your mental health. If you want to be mentally healthy, you get outside. You start learning to take care of things from the beginning to the end. And, you were part of its life. Those things, man, they trigger those dopaminergical systems, like if you set out on a path to do something, let's say grow a dang tomato plant, and you start from seed, you baby that plant, you put it outside, you see it grow, you eat its fruit, you cut it down and use its nutrient again. Man, that was a process and a journey that you had multiple victories on. You know what I'm saying? And you had an end result that you wanted. Those are the kind of things that you want to do as a human being to get your mind right. You want successes. You want journeys like that gave you feeling of success, of enjoyment, of taking care of something else, of learning the feeling of gratitude, learning the feeling that things need you and you need things also. So yeah, dude, growing is more than just cannabis, more than just, posting our pictures. It's about getting out there in the morning when that sun's just coming up, dew on the plants, birds are chirping and flying on your sunflowers. You find peace and happiness, and you find a mental state that you're like, you know what? I like this. This is good. This is peaceful. Thank you, God, for this day. You change yourself through gardening. So I agree with you, Carrie.
Amen.
Yeah. I like the one new meme I've been seeing going around. It's like, let's stop glorifying the grind and let's glorify whatever the hell this is. And I think it's a picture like, remember what's the old books like The Toad and the Willows or some weird old book like that? It's like animals just sitting in the garden, chilling.
See, you saw that, and I saw a video. Well, not a video, but at least a post of a old taxidermy from like 1750 something. A taxidermy of two frogs fencing. So, I just like to know that weird motherfuckers did weird shit a long time ago, also. So, we're almost the same.
I see where you're going with that. It flies.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to sidetrack it that hard. Anyway.
That's what
Yes,
we do.
you did.
We talk about one thing and then someone steps in there and goes, "Rrr." You're like, you remember? Was it like the Who Framed Roger Rabbit where like the cartoon's coming at him, so he takes like the line on the road and like rips it and then like runs it into the fucking building and fucking cartoon goes smack right into the building? That's kind of like what we do to intelligence around here.
Hey, it's getting late.
It is.
A lot of weed in. It happened.
It's been a great time. I want to thank you guys for coming and hanging out with us tonight. It's been a lot of fun here tonight.
Heck
Great
yeah.
conversation. That like gets me into wanting to go home and play in the garden, sitting here in the hotel room going, a few more days till home time. But I think because like I'm adamant, I'm going to be doing some outdoor plants this year, and I'll do some over at the in-laws because I told them I will. And but like I want to do a few guerrilla style outdoors, so I think we're gonna go for a walk and just start. The snow is mostly gone in our area, so it's a good time to start figuring shit out and scatter a few beans or clones here and there and see what happens. Because I don't know, I even when G-Bay is trimming up all or throwing off all that fucking rotted stuff with the big fucking sour evil look on his face, because I totally get it. I would be pissed too. I'm just like, yeah, but he's still got something outdoors, and it's yeah. I want to join the cool kids club.
Thunder Dan had an old like saying, like his grandpa gave him, or something. It was like one for the crow, one for the roe. Wow, how does it go? It's an old fucking saying, but yeah, basically you grow some to fucking chuck in the pile, basically, because shit happens.
It also gets into the law of returns, right? Closed loop cycle. It takes them up, put it on the ground. Lots of nutrients being returned to the fucking cycle for the next year's plants that we were talking about earlier.
We used to say one for the rippers, one for the popo, one for us.
Yeah, basically one for the rippers, one for.
Yeah, right. It's one. God damn it! What is it? Like one for Mother Nature, one for the fucking bugs, one. But yeah, one for the roe, one for the crow, one for. God damn! Fuck! How did that go? Shit! I don't know. I'll shut up. Now I'm fucking.
One for the blackbird and one for the.
We need Thunder Dan.
That's right. I figured all of your fucking random ass knowledge shit that should have been knocked into yours.
Literature isn't my thing, but the Buddhists do the same thing. They give to nature so that nature can give back to them, and they always plant a little bit more than what they really want to take, and they don't try to harm anything. So they don't squish a bug. They don't, they allow nature to take its course. And if nature, so a bug just wants half the apple, they eat the other half of the apple. We were notorious as kids going to the apple farms and just picking the apples off the ground. And we would just eat parts of the apples. We didn't eat all of the apple. The rest of the apple would go into the compost bin, right? The one that had the worms in it, or that had, and we didn't have apples in our yard, so we didn't worry about infesting our apples with those worms. But that became part of the whole cycle of life there. So
I found a stash of fruit trees. It's like the public utility building, whatever the hell it's called. One of those like government kind of buildings around town here that's on a highway off in the middle of nowhere. There's no like sidewalk. You can't get to it really, basically. But if you were a dirt biker, a snowmobiler, off-roader of any sort, sometimes you zipped across this yard. And like I said, it was an office kind of building, right? And one day I'm like, these are fruit trees. Like I can tell just by the look at them, right? I'm not a tree expert, but and then I went by in the fall one time and I got to realize what they actually were. And it was like pear trees and all this stuff. And I realized no one's picking these. So I'm like, yeah, I'm sneaking in there all the time. Well, I don't have to sneak in there. It's right on the side of the fucking road. But yeah, just walk right up, fucking pear by the bag full. It's awesome. I'm not telling no one where that is.
I wouldn't either. I remember up in my area, you might get like crab apple trees or a few other apple trees, a couple types of cherries, and that's about it. So we come down to areas like where we're now, like it's fucking orchards and vineyards, fucking all the way around you for miles and miles, because that's where the cash is, kind of thing. And we'll come down here to do tree work in the summer, and you'll be running fucking plants or trees through the chipper, picking plums off them as they're going through the chipper, stuff in your face, and you're like, this is fucking amazing. Oh shit, cherry trees next. Oh, this is a rough life, like it's.
Yeah. We got lots of wild apple trees around here. It's nice because I'll be out mountain biking or something, and I'll just see one, and it's just covered in fresh fruit. I'm like, yeah, we might as well have a break right about here.
Well, that's something I would like to see a lot more communities do, is like you talk about, say, like the homeless population and stuff. I start planting friggin' like food crop trees all around. Like, and I know I've heard of it. Is it Victoria, BC? Maybe there's a couple communities I have heard of that have actually started doing that, and instead of just decorative trees, put some kind of fruiting plant there so that people can eat off of that. I like the idea of stuff like that, right? If I can think about how cool that'd be, walking down the street of your town or whatever, and something like G-Bay is talking about pears. Fucking, oh shit, there's pears.
Right, I gotta think like a small community like mine, like 3-4 apple trees would probably support this whole community in apples. You know what I mean? Like an apple tree produces a lot of motherfucking apples.
Dude, there's a pear and an apple tree that growed near my house out in the field. Now, I guess there's like an old house there back in the day or something, you know. But that one pear tree, I gather pears from it during the fall, and I make enough fermented fruit juice from it to use for all of my stuff. I give it away, I sell it. Just one tree just makes so much excess. And the pears are so juicy. They put off so much good sweetness and juice. I eat a bunch of them, but you know, I don't even get all of them. There's still plenty that's on the ground. So yeah, one good fruit tree can put off a lot.
Yeah. You can make your ferments, make some goddamn moonshine at the same time, and still have
extra. I've made wine from it when I used to drink. I made wine from pears and apples all the time.
So I quit drinking, but I'd try some pear
right? Pear liquor.
A couple sips, you know.
Well, hell, you know, we can all be practical, right? You just take that pear, you make some liquor out of it, and you use that to extract some cannabis, and then we're all good, right?
That's right. Yeah, you take those pears and you just kind of smash them a little bit, add some champagne yeast, and in 5 days you got about 7% wine. It's easy to make. That's grandpa style right there.
Hey man, you know, a little buzz wouldn't nice when you can get it out of the backyard.
Like you said, or mush a fucking 5-gallon bucket up of it, and you got a field worth of fertilizer in a couple months.
Yeah. Yep.
I speak of making fermented juices and stuff like that. Last year, I did a whole bunch up and had them sitting there in these fucking bottled up and shit like that. And in this the cupboard in our downstairs bathroom, which is kind of becomes my tea brewing area in the winter months because, well, that's the way it is. And I put all the bottles of FPJs and stuff like that down in there, but there's a heat vent that runs out from the bottom of that cupboard. I now have alcohol in all of those bottles. You open those up now, and it's like, there's fucking booze in there. Got like Devil's Club booze. There's like banana juice booze in there. It's like, fuck, I should get someone to try some of that stuff out and see how well it works.
It's like you making prison hooch.
Yeah, damn near, man. Fucking high grade stuff. But it's looking like it's getting to be about time to get out of here. Once again, I want to thank you guys for coming and hanging out with us tonight. This has been a lot of fun. Need to do this kind of thing more often just because I like getting into the nuts and bolts and stuff. Talking DIY inputs is huge. And I think it's kind of, I think that, well, it already is the kind of a wave in the revolution of growing, but I think it's kind of going to be a next bigger wave is people just being able to, how do I do this for cheap? You know, so,
I think even more behind that, it's going to be cleaning up a lot of the fuck ups we did by, you know, industrializing agriculture. I think is where we're really going to see the change. It's nice to, you know, think that we're going to learn something, but I think it's more going to be just fixing our fuck up. It's what, just plain and simple, you know. So, and it's what's going to happen to straighten it out, in my opinion, right? We've got to take these inputs and put them back. We can't just take the shit and just think that, you know, spreading some fucking ammonia out in the field is going to take care of everything, you know? Shit, don't fucking cut it. So,
yeah. Right.
Under challenging conditions of water is going to be our next like challenging resource.
Also very true. When you think of a lot of grow system where it's just like drain to waste, right? That's I've got a cousin that I've fucking said, oh man, one of those people that's always got to be right about everything, and I've been always posting stupid memes. And there's a meme that he posted talking about how organic gardening, the art of taking land that can feed thousands and feeding dozens or something to that effect. And what the picture on the meme was basically what looks like a diseased lawn with like a patch of a little bit of green, mostly yellow here, a lot of sand, a little bit of green yellow grass over here. So and then he's got the picture below that is like a fully functional hydroponic fucking not cannabis even growing, but like whatever the fruit or veggie crop was. And it's like, dude, you're not talking about even in the same world at all there. You're talking about a fully finished fucking plug and play, blah, 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 blah. But you think about all the fucking waste that comes with that. It's all that water waste alone, just right off the top there like that. Not so good.
You really have to think about all the resources, not just, the resources that you buy. You have to think about where they ultimately go, and water is going to be a big challenge coming up because either there's too much or there's too little. There's like never a happy medium, and we got to figure that out too.
Yeah, and I think it's really going to boil down to that we have too little, and that's what we're going to have to start figuring out. And that's why I was kind of wondering earlier when I was asking you about that, to see if, you guys are really starting to deal with trying to figure out, growing with, minimal water and things like that, to really get down to, getting productive, still getting productive, nutrient dense plants with minimum fucking water, is going to be, like you said, the next great challenge. So. And I know it's going to be, out that way that it starts, because, fuck it, it's like the agricultural hub of fucking the U.S. So,
well, what ends up happening is when we get squeezed, we get innovative, and sometimes the most innovative things are the way we used to do it in the old days. Like think about the Victory Gardens, right? And how awesome they were.
Well, yes, and also when we get squeezed is when we also make all these fucking problems that we're trying to, fix.
That, or we make really smart decisions about not overusing resources, and we get really skimpy. And if you're squeezed, you don't have a lot of resources, then you can make do with what you have, right? So sometimes that's the best solution. Make do with what you have. If you have food waste in garbage heaps that you can utilize, use that, right? That's like, you don't have to spend a lot of money on industrialized products to get an awesome end result. Sometimes it just takes your own manpower to do it. Absolutely. And your will, right? You have to have a will.
Right. Hey, okay, Alex, you want to shout out any of the stuff that you're doing on our way out?
Yeah, man. This Sunday, May 7th, we've got what's called the Community Cup in Oklahoma City. And I'll be speaking there, and also have a booth set up selling all these inputs that I make and fun stuff like that. Go check out at OK Calyx, and then at OK Calyx Genetics is where I'll be posting all of my breeding I'll be doing this summer. I got a lot of good genetics that I've crossed that are now coming up, and we're growing them out and just going to see what they look like. So got a lot of fun stuff coming up, man. Thanks.
Very cool. Very cool. Can't wait to see what they look like. These new genetics you got coming along. Well, what do y'all figure? Time to get out of here?
Let's get the fuck out.
Let's do it. All right, y'all. Thanks for hanging out with us. Everyone in the live chat, y'all have been killing it.
Yeah, it was a great show.
Thanks again, Terry.
Thanks for joining us. Shane,
thanks,
Terry,
Terry.
OK Calyx. You guys are awesome.
Take me down to the graveyard, show me a resting place. Take this myself a coffin and I dug myself a hole.